I never meant to be there that late. The house wasn't mine, not really. It was just where I worked. A quiet, aging home on a street that sloped toward the river, where time seemed to move a little slower. I handled small repair jobs for people around town. Faucets, switches, old locks that stuck when it rained. That night, it was the lock. Mrs. Marin had called earlier that week. Calm voice, steady but warm, like she'd already seen enough of life not to waste words. "Front door keeps jamming," she'd said. "It's probably nothing, but I'd rather fix it before winter." By the time I got there, dusk was already folding into the windows. The kind of blue hour where everything looks both softer and lonelier. She opened the door halfway, holding it like she wasn't sure if she wanted to. "You're earlier than I expected," she said. She wasn't dressed for guests. Faded jeans, loose sweater, hair pinned in a way that said she hadn't planned to care. But she carried herself with a quiet assurance, the kind that doesn't need makeup or light to make a room turn toward her. Inside smelled faintly of jasmine and wood polish. I remember thinking how still it felt, like the air itself was listening. I got to work while she lingered nearby, half in conversation, half not. She didn't hover, just existed in the same space in that easy, understated way older people sometimes do. Every now and then she'd ask something that caught me off guard. "Do you ever get tired of fixing what other people break?" It sounded casual, but it wasn't. I didn't answer right away. "Depends on what it is," I said finally. She smiled. Not at me, exactly, but at the way I said it. Like she'd heard something I didn't mean to reveal. I was tightening the final screws when another voice called from down the hall. Lighter, teasing, familiar. "Is he still here, Marin?" Her sister stepped in a moment later. Same eyes, but a livelier kind of mischief in them. Maybe 5 years younger, maybe not. She was the sort of person who noticed tension and enjoyed poking it. She leaned against the doorway, watching me work. "Does he make house calls this late for everyone?" Marin didn't respond, but her silence said enough. When I finished, I stood up and wiped my hands. "It should work fine now. Door won't stick again." Her sister came closer, testing the handle. She turned it, then looked at me. Then, without warning, she closed the door. It clicked softly, locking. Her smile was small, but deliberate. "Guess we'll have to test if he fixed it properly," she said. The sound of the lock was louder than it should have been. Marin froze just for a second, long enough for me to notice her breath catch, the slightest tightening of her fingers around the mug she was holding. Then she said quietly, "Don't start." But the moment hung there, fragile and electric. I could feel it ripple through the space between us. Her sister's grin faded into something unreadable before she unlocked the door again. "Seems to work perfectly," she said, and walked off down the hall like nothing had happened. Marin didn't move. For a long moment, neither did I. The air felt heavier, like something had shifted and neither of us wanted to name it. Finally, she exhaled, half a laugh, half a sigh. "She's always been like that," she murmured. "Never learned when to stop." I nodded, but I wasn't thinking about her sister anymore. It was the sound of that lock. The click, the pause after it, the way Marin's eyes had met mine, just long enough to say something neither of us dared to. And even after I left, I could still hear it. The quiet turn of metal, the moment before silence swallowed it whole. A week later, she called about a flickering light in the back hallway. It wasn't urgent, but she said it like it was, like the light had suddenly started to matter. Maybe it was just an excuse, or maybe that's what I wanted to believe. When I arrived, she was sitting at the kitchen table, papers spread out in front of her, bills, receipts, a coffee going cold beside her elbow. The room was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft patter of rain against the window. "You're early again," she said without looking up. "Bad habit," I replied, setting my tools down. She gave a small, distracted smile before returning to her papers. There was something different about her today. Her hair wasn't pinned. Her sweater slipped off one shoulder like she hadn't noticed or hadn't cared. She looked tired in a way that didn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying something invisible for too long. I worked in silence, changing the bulb, adjusting the fixture. Every so often, I could feel her watching me, the faint weight of her gaze, the kind that lingers when someone's trying not to be caught looking. "Do you ever regret fixing things?" she asked suddenly. I turned slightly. Regret. You make things work again. But sometimes broken things are quieter. She hesitated, frowning at her own words. Never mind. I didn't mean that. I wanted to ask what she really meant, but the question felt too personal, too close to something raw. When I finished, I tested the switch. The light came on, warm, steady, no flicker. There, I said. Problem solved. She stood, coming closer than before, close enough that I could smell the faint trace of jasmine again. She tilted her head toward the bulb, pretending to inspect it, but her eyes weren't on the light. Thank you, she said quietly. Then, after a pause that stretched a little too long, you remind me of someone I used to know. Her voice had softened, vulnerable, uncertain, like she hadn't planned to say it out loud. Someone good? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Her fingers brushed the edge of the table, tracing circles on the wood. Someone kind, she said finally. That's not always the same thing. For a moment, the rain filled the silence between us. I gathered my things, unsure if I should leave or stay. But before I could speak, she reached toward the light switch again. The bulb flickered once, not from the wiring, but from the way her hand trembled. See, she said, smiling faintly. It's still not perfect. Her laugh was small, almost apologetic, but it stayed with me. The way it cracked at the end, as if it came from somewhere too honest. I told her I'd check it again tomorrow, even though I knew it didn't need fixing. She just nodded, eyes lowered, voice barely above a whisper. Tomorrow, then. And as I stepped outside into the rain, I realized I wasn't thinking about the light at all, only about the way she'd said it. It was the storm that brought me back that night. The wind had ripped a shutter loose from her back porch, and she'd called in a rush, voice softer this time, almost apologetic. I know it's late, she said, but it's banging against the window. I can't sleep. By the time I arrived, rain was pouring in sheets. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in a cardigan, holding a flashlight that flickered every few seconds. You didn't have to come, she said. I didn't mind. It was true, and that was the problem. The shutter took longer to fix than I'd expected. The screws had rusted, and the wind made it hard to keep the drill steady. Marin held the flashlight for me, close enough that I could feel her warmth when the wind shifted. We didn't talk much. The storm filled the silence, thrumming against the walls, muting everything but the rhythm of rain and breath. When it was finally done, I followed her inside. Her hair was damp, a few strands clinging to her cheek. She brushed them away, half embarrassed. Sorry, she said. You must think I'm helpless. Not even close. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She poured 2 mugs of tea and handed me one. Her hand brushed mine briefly. Unintentional, but not entirely. The contact was so small, it could have meant nothing. But it didn't. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The power flickered, and the room dimmed to a low amber glow from the single lamp by the window. She set her cup down, fingers tightening around the handle. You shouldn't come here so often, she said softly. I looked at her, unsure whether she was warning me or herself. I only come when you call, I said. Her lips parted, as if to reply, but before she could, her phone rang. A name flashed across the screen, Daniel. She hesitated, thumb hovering over accept. Then she turned the phone face down, letting it vibrate on the counter until it went silent. I should answer that, she said quietly. But you didn't. That made her look at me. Really look. There was a flicker of something raw in her eyes, something between defiance and guilt. You don't understand, she whispered. Then explain it. She shook her head. It's not that simple. The storm pressed harder against the windows, a gust rattling the glass. For a heartbeat, she stepped closer, too close. Her hand rose slightly, maybe to steady herself, maybe to reach for me. Then she caught herself, withdrew it halfway, fingers curling in midair. You should go, she said, though her voice barely carried it. I didn't move, not for a long second. The distance between us felt like a held breath, thin, trembling, one wrong word away from breaking. Then the lights flickered back on. The spell broke. I nodded slowly, stepped back. I'll send the invoice tomorrow. She smiled, but it trembled. Right. Tomorrow. When I opened the door, the rain had slowed. I could still feel her eyes on my back as I left, and part of me wanted to turn to finish whatever almost happened. But I didn't. Not yet. It had been weeks since the storm. Weeks of small talk that never reached what it wanted to say. I'd kept my distance, hoping space might calm whatever was starting to unravel between us. It didn't. She called again on a Thursday, no pretext this time. "Can you stop by?" was all she said. When I arrived, the house felt different. Not cold, not warm, just paused. A single lamp on, a book half open on the arm of the couch. She was sitting there, barefoot, wearing the same cardigan from the storm night. "I didn't break anything," she said when I stepped in. "I just didn't want to be alone." I nodded, setting my jacket down. "That's reason enough." She gestured toward the couch. "Sit, then." We didn't talk for a while. The silence wasn't awkward this time. It was heavy, dense, filled with all the things we'd avoided naming. I could hear the soft tick of the wall clock and the occasional creak of the house settling. "You ever feel like you started something you don't know how to stop?" she asked suddenly. I looked at her. Her eyes were fixed on the carpet, voice barely audible. "Every day," I said. She gave a quiet, breathy laugh that wasn't really laughter. I thought I'd outgrown this kind of confusion. I wanted to ask what kind, but we both knew. She finally met my eyes. There was exhaustion there, not physical, but emotional, the kind that comes from pretending for too long. "This," she gestured between us, her hand trembling slightly. "Whatever this is. It's not supposed to happen." "I know," I said. "Then why can't we just stop?" I didn't have an answer. Because we hadn't started it, not really. It had just happened, slowly and quietly, in glances and silences and the space between words. She leaned back against the couch, closing her eyes. "You make me feel like I'm still waiting for something. And I hate that." The honesty in her voice was enough to make me forget how to breathe. "I never meant to make things complicated," I said carefully. Her eyes opened again, and she studied me like she was searching for something she already knew she wouldn't find. "You didn't," she said. "I did. I let it happen. I wanted someone to see me, and you did. That's all it takes, isn't it?" Her words hit harder than I expected. She smiled faintly, shaking her head, and looked away before I could answer. "Don't look at me like that," she whispered. "You'll make me forget how lonely I was before you walked in." We sat there, neither moving, the air between us full of all the things we couldn't touch. Then she said it, soft, almost pleading. "Tell me this isn't real." I opened my mouth, but no sound came. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to lie. The next time I saw her, she looked different. Not in the way someone changes overnight, but in the way grief makes people quieter. There was a stillness to her, like she'd stopped fighting something. She had called again, this time about a leaky pipe. Her voice on the phone had been steady, but detached, as if she were reading a script she didn't believe in. When I arrived, she didn't meet my eyes right away. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and rain, the kind of scent that tries to mask something heavier. "It's under the sink," she said. I tried to fix it myself. She hadn't. The wrench lay untouched beside the cabinet. I crouched down, the sound of dripping water filling the silence. I could feel her behind me, pacing slowly, arms folded like she was holding herself together. After a few minutes, she said quietly, "You remind me of him." I froze. "Who?" She hesitated, then leaned against the counter, staring somewhere past me. "My husband. Ex-husband, I mean." Her voice was calm, too calm. "He used to fix things too. Not for work, just for me. Broken drawers, squeaky doors, small things that didn't matter. I think he believed that if he kept fixing the house, he could keep fixing us." I kept working, though my hands slowed. "What happened?" I asked. She let out a small, bitter laugh. "He stopped trying. Or maybe I did. I don't even remember who gave up first." The drip fell again, sharp, rhythmic. When I looked up, she was holding a small, old phone, the kind no one uses anymore. She pressed a button and a tinny voice filled the air, his voice. "Hey, it's me. I fixed the latch on the shed. You can stop worrying now." It was short, ordinary, harmless. But the way she stood, arms limp, eyes far away, it wasn't about the words. It was about what was missing after them. "I still have that message," she said. "For years. I can't delete it." I didn't say anything. What could I? The silence was heavy, almost reverent. She looked at me then, really looked, and there was something raw in her face, a confession that didn't need words. I'm sorry if I've made things confusing, she said. Her voice caught. You look at me like I'm still worth seeing. And I'd forgotten what that felt like. I wanted to say something, anything that might steady the tremor in her voice. But my throat felt tight. Instead, I reached for the wrench and turned it once more. The dripping stopped. The sound of running water faded into a quiet that felt almost sacred. She took a small breath, her lips trembling. Just like that, she whispered. Fixed. But I could tell she wasn't talking about the pipe. And for the first time, I wished she was. It happened quietly, without plans, without the kind of build-up that stories usually give you. Just two people at the edge of something they could no longer pretend wasn't there. She didn't call this time. I went on my own. The excuse was the invoice I'd never sent. The truth was simpler. I missed the sound of her house, the hum of her kettle, the way the floors sighed when she walked. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised, just tired in a peaceful way, like she'd already decided not to fight the inevitable. I was wondering when you'd stop pretending it was about repairs, she said softly. I brought the bill, I replied, holding up the folded paper. Her smile flickered. You always bring the wrong tools. Inside, the light was dim. Evening had settled in, warm and slow. The rain had started again, the soft kind that blurs edges and makes rooms feel smaller, safer. She motioned toward the kitchen table. Tea. I nodded. She poured without asking how I liked it, and that felt right. The kind of familiarity that only comes when silence has said enough over time. For a while, neither of us spoke. The steam curled between us like breath we weren't ready to share. I watched her hands, the way she held the cup with both palms, steady but fragile. There was something deliberate in every movement, as if she were memorizing the simplicity of it all. You don't fix things just to help people, she said quietly. You fix them because you're afraid of what happens if you don't. I looked up. Her tone wasn't sharp, it was knowing. Maybe, I said, but you let them stay broken longer than you should. Her eyes softened. Because sometimes breaking is all that's left. That was when it happened. The stillness between words turned into something else. I didn't reach for her. I just didn't move away when her hand found mine. Her fingers were cold, but her grip wasn't tentative. It was an answer neither of us had planned to give. We stayed that way, hands between cups, rain pressing gently against the window. I don't know what this is, she whispered. Neither do I. She gave a small laugh, barely a breath of it, but it cracked something open between us. I can't promise it won't hurt, she said. I'm not asking you to. Our hands didn't move. No kiss, no confession. Just warmth spreading between our palms, steady and alive. The kind of connection that didn't need naming. Outside, the rain deepened, and the world beyond her window faded to a blur. She exhaled slowly, leaning her forehead against our joined hands. I could feel the faint tremor of it, the surrender, the honesty of finally stopping the act of being fine. And for the first time, neither of us looked away. No grand words. No perfect ending. Just two people quietly collapsing into the truth that had been waiting for them all along. It's strange, the things you remember after something ends. Not the big moments, not the words, but the quiet ones, the sound of her stirring tea, the soft click of the door when I left, the way she always paused before saying goodbye. It's been months now. I don't work in her neighborhood anymore. I still pass by her streets sometimes, though I never stop. The house looks the same. White porch light, jasmine near the steps, a window that still glows faintly at night. But I know it's different inside. I think we both are. We never made promises. That was the beauty of it. Maybe, the honesty in knowing there was no safe ending to write. What happened between us wasn't about forever. It was about finally being seen after years of pretending not to need it. Marin taught me that connection doesn't always arrive in clean shapes. Sometimes it comes like water through a crack, quiet, persistent, inevitable. You try to seal it, to name it, but it keeps finding its way through. I used to think love was about timing, about meeting the right person at the right stage of life. Now I know it's more fragile than that. It's about recognition. Two people catching a glimpse of themselves in someone else and not turning away, even when they should. There's a certain peace in how it ended. No fight, no final word. Just a shared silence that felt like understanding. The kind of ending that doesn't close a door, just lets the light fade naturally. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I catch myself reaching for my phone. Not to call her, but just to hold it, like the habit of reaching out hasn't quite left me. I'll scroll past her number, pause for half a second, then keep going. Not out of regret, but gratitude. She once said broken things are quieter. I think she was wrong. The truth is, when something cracks open, it starts to echo. The sound doesn't fade. It just settles somewhere deeper, somewhere you carry quietly. I see that in myself now. I listen more. I speak slower. I fix fewer things. And if I'm honest, I think about her sometimes. Not with longing, but with warmth. Like remembering a room you once loved being in, even if you no longer live there. We didn't ruin anything. We just met at a time when both of us needed to remember what being human felt like. Messy, uncertain, alive. That's what she gave me. Not love exactly. Something quieter, but maybe more lasting. A reminder that even fleeting connections can leave you changed in ways you don't notice until long after the door has closed. And maybe that's enough. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?